So this next question is the most irritating question I could ask a speaker.
Oh boy.
The audience hates it. It's the most horrible question you could ever say to any speaker or any audience member. It makes everyone nuts and they can't stand it. And I hate this question also. The question is,
I'm not sure why I get asked it.
Is Brian Clement and Gabriel Cousins claim that fruit has been hybridized, it's too sweet, it's feeding yeast, mold, candida, fungus, and cancers. And they continue to say that if this was 100 years ago, you'd go outside for maybe 3 weeks a year and get some very tart, small, wild blackberries, and that would be the only sugar you'd get. There'd be no fruit the rest of the year. There'd be no hybridized Fuji apples. And therefore, they're claiming that, sure, fruits and vegetables is better than a standard American diet, but really there is fructose in sugar. And then they're saying that from Boston College, that the doctor there is saying that that the food of cancer is glucose and glutamine, and therefore, again, Thomas Seyfried is saying that cancer's food is glucose and glutamine, and that you have to try to starve both of them. So again, I want to be friends. I love fruit, and I'm criticizing cherries feels like anti-nature, but I can't get. They continue to say this. They say they worked with Darkfield and the other type of blood work and did live blood cell analysis for 20 years, and they are saying this about fruit. Do you have feedback? I want to be evidence-based on this, but the problem is if no one studies it and there is no evidence, so help me to understand what they're saying and why they are relentless and won't stop saying it. Help me.
Dr. Pai, are you anti-fruit?
No.
I was just
why would I be anti-fruit?
Well,
that
I
means
didn't
you're
think you were.
anti-phytonutrients, you're anti-antioxidants, you're anti-fiber, you're anti-inflammatory proteins. Every study that's looking at phytonutrients and anti-cancer benefits, for example, will show that every single phytonutrient has an anti-cancer benefit. That's why we're trying to look at rainbow-colored foods. Now, I wouldn't be juicing all day long fruits like for extra sugar, but really what happens when we show, I'll just give you an example. So they used to tell diabetics not to have blueberries because it raised their blood sugar, right? And then what the studies were looking at, so well, they're putting a few blueberries on oatmeal and spiked their blood sugar. So unfortunately, medicine would say, hey, shouldn't be eating fruit because it raises your blood sugar. You have diabetes because of this glucose, fructose in the fruit. However, what we now know is that when they eat a serving of fruit, a serving of blueberries, a fourth of a cup, for example, then it actually will decrease their blood sugar. Why? Because it has an anti-inflammatory effect with that a higher amount of phytonutrients. It has more fiber, it has the antioxidants, and it has anti-inflammatory protein. So the key is I don't listen to what Brian Clement would say, by the way, personally, the data will show worldwide. I mean, if you look at even people in the blue zones, they're still eating fruit. They're not eating fruit. They're living past 100. You look at any study or any group of people who live the longest, fruit is part of it. Now, again, we have to look at probably getting more organic, more non-GMO, et cetera, not using it as a fruit juice where we're just putting a bunch of other things or sugar in there as well. But to say not to eat fruit, then most people don't either understand the nutrition or the biological complexity of all the wonderful aspects of antioxidants, vitamins, phytonutrients, and fiber.
I look at it, good info, Dr. Pai. I look at it, then if we're going to try to keep glucose out of the way of our cells, if we're going to try to keep glucose away from our organs, we may as well just cash it in now. We may as well just forget about it. We may as well just forget about life or living. Our existence depends on glucose to the cells. What's the best glucose? Well, it's fructose, whether anybody likes it or not. It's fructose. That's the best glucose. It's sugars from citrus and papayas and melons and anything else you want to eat, right? Apples, berries, cherries, whatever. It's sugars from these. And potatoes, that's another great one too. So but there's other foods. I'm not naming the whole list. It's just try not to Try not to punish me if I don't cover them all right now. But the point is we can't exist otherwise. We can't. And even avocados, which is a fatty fruit, has a substantial amount of actual fructose in it. So we have to realize that it's how we exist. It's how we live, how we think, how we breathe. It's glucose. It's sugar. Take sugar away from us, we're screwed.
And so what you have to see, which I agree, right, is what is that fructose or glucose coming with, right? So when it's coming with all the antioxidants, phytonutrients, all those wonderful benefits, then that's where we have the benefits of it. Now, most of the standard American diet and what we're eating in ultra processed foods is just, as you know, as everybody knows, is ultra refined and processed, which is then terrible. That's when sugar got the evil aspect. But I think people are trying to then boil down, again, a simplicity of nutrition and saying, well, it has sugar in there on some level of like glucose or fructose, and it's possible, but it's not good for you. But you have to understand all the other things that are compiled in it. There's hundreds of phytochemicals. Even when we look at, for example, a kale, we'll have like 90 different phytonutrients. So even though we think of just vitamin K2 or folic acid, there's so many other compounds in every berry, every fruit. That's not just the main beta carotene, for example. So this is where we have to look at, don't worry about the sugar from there. I'm worried about the average person going out to fast food or getting packaged candied foods or things that actually have extra added sugar. Like I'm getting a coffee and getting a latte that's filled with, sugar, or Coca-Cola products, or, any kind of thing like that. I think that's where we should be shifting the discussion, instead of vilifying fruit, which people should be eating, than to actually saying, well, you should maybe get rid of these bad sugary products. Because, eating, at the end of the day, Anthony's right. Our cells run, our universal training dollar of our cell is glucose. So we do need to have it. And that's why when people thought cancer is just taking glucose as its energy and restricting, carbohydrates in the diet, and people shifted towards ketogenic diets in the animal models that we were participating at Johns Hopkins in 2008. We started to see that when we restricted the animals to 100%, so they weren't getting any glucose, the cancer cells were able to change their metabolism, use ketones to grow the cancer cells, right? So the body's really complex. It will use energy from different sources, but the idea is we need to get the source that has all the other benefits with it, and that's what you get with fruit.
Yeah, you don't want to strip it down to nothing. You don't want to strip sugar down to nothing where it's got nothing in it. And if you eat piles of sugar that has nothing in it, then you're in trouble. Even cane sugar's got nutrients in it, sugar cane itself. I mean, you have things in there that are critical, but if you strip all those nutrients away, then you have just straight sugar and nothing else. You removed all the antioxidants, you removed all the phytochemical compounds, then you're dealing with an entirely different species of sugar. Genetically modified sugar too is not great. So put all that together, but does it feed actual cancer? Cancer will eat anything. It will eat anything. So that's something to keep in mind. And what is cancer? Cancer is a blend of a couple of different things. You have to have a specific amount of toxins in the body and specific amount of pathogens. But in the end, if you're eating something and that is missing so many of the things like Dr. Pai's talking about too, the antioxidants and all those different phytochemical compounds, if it's missing that, then we really get in trouble. That's the whole thing. But I think it's not that cancer will eat sugar. It's not that cancer will eat fat. Cancer will eat protein. It's a combination of really the right circumstances in somebody's body. That's a big part of it. You got to have all these toxins and you got to have all these pathogens. And the combination of both of those is really what goes wrong. But we can't blame fruit, is what I'm saying. You can't say fruit is going to give you cancer. Fruit is going to feed cancer. Fruit is going to, turn on you so that the cancer turns on you, or cancer will feed off the fruit. We can't go that way. I think if we go that route, we're in a dangerous place, because like Dr. Pai was saying, there's all this medicine in there, and glucose is what our bodies thrive on, is what I was saying too. So if your body thrives on glucose, that glucose has to be filled with these nutrients to help slow down or prevent cancer. And it's critical, right, Dr. Pai?
Yes. And you have to understand that nature is kind. Humans may not be, but nature is always kind. So, it's not a double cheeseburger or an ice cream sundae that's coming out of the plant, right? That we're eating, right? And also eating it in a certain amount. So it's not just juicing it and extracting it. And yes, there's little extremes of the people doing juicing, but to say to limit fruit, then also there's a limit of like, well, then those people, because we see again, when people do these restrictive diets, because they go to places, then we can see that their overall condition doesn't improve because you need phytonutrients. Again, a lot of people think antioxidants are one thing and phytonutrients are completely different. You need to have the color. You need to have the phytonutrients. That's only found in a lot of the fruits. They have the spectrum of the rainbow a lot, right? Now, we also get it from all the vegetables and also the grains, legumes, but we're getting certain specific phytocompounds in fruits. So I would never restrict anybody from fruits. Now, what we do, though, we would like to look at of the plant foods that we have, does a patient have a sensitivity to any of those foods? And yes, they can. Can they have an immediate IgE or a delayed IgG4 reaction up to 4 days later after exposure to a fruit? Absolutely. So people can come back with the sensitivity to citrus, for example, or melon or an apple or something else like that. So yes, those are other aspects where certain fruits could be more individualized. We're saying, hey, you know what? You might need to back off that because your immune system is having a problem with that. And we can also retrain that person's immune system to become more tolerant to that. But at the end of the day, why we want to train someone's immune system to be more tolerant and also fix their microbiome, which is one reason why they have those issues as well, is because we still want those phytonutrients as much as possible.
Yeah.
Okay.
And when I was saying cancer will, and when I was saying, excuse me, sorry, Steve, when I was saying cancer feed on anything, industrialized toxins, chemicals, toxic chemicals and so forth, all those things, that's what I mean. It'll eat anything. It'll eat any kind of garbage in a toxic form too. So that's something to keep in mind as well.